4 years ago, my ex-husband and I parted ways after he callously declared his desire to trade in my old Facey for someone younger, hastening our divorce proceedings characterized by acrimony and financial disputes, leaving me to shoulder half of his debts. Since then, our interactions have been confined to legal matters concerning our children, with any semblance of civility eroded by lingering resentment. Recently, news of his advanced cancer diagnosis reached me through our shared offspring, our daughters aged 25 and 23, and our son aged 22. Initially, I found it difficult to summon any empathy for him, given the history of animosity between us. Nonetheless, out of a sense of duty to my children, I resolved to offer them my support during this trying time. However, when they broached the subject of accommodating their ailing father in our home during his final days, I recoiled at the suggestion, feeling insulted that they would even consider such a request, knowing the depth of our mutual antipathy. Their rationale that his relatives were unable or unwilling to provide him with shelter only compounded my indignation. I posed practical questions about the logistical challenges and financial burdens associated with his care, highlighting the impracticality of their proposal given their own work commitments and my responsibilities as a remote worker. Their inability to address these concerns only reinforced my conviction that their father's care was not a burden I could shoulder alone. Despite their protests and accusations of heartlessness, I remained steadfast in my decision, asserting my autonomy in matters concerning our household. While I value their input on other matters, I made it clear that this decision was mine alone to make. Their pleas for reconsideration, fueled by the urgency of his impending eviction, only served to deepen my resolve. Though I sympathize with their desire to provide their father with comfort in his final days, I refuse to compromise my own well-being and peace of mind to appease their sense of familial obligation. In the face of their relentless pressure, I stand firm in my decision, unwilling to sacrifice my own emotional stability for the sake of reconciliation with a man who caused me so much pain. Despite knowing the toll our divorce took on my mental health, my ex-husband recently reached out to me, urging me to set aside the past and reconsider our tumultuous history in light of his current health crisis. It struck me as ironic that he would seek solace from me in his final moments, especially considering his penchant for pursuing younger partners post-divorce, leaving me to grapple with feelings of inadequacy. For context, our oldest daughter is awaiting the completion of her new home, while our two youngest children still rely on our support for independent living arrangements. In response to his plea, I couldn't help but offer a pointed retort, suggesting that perhaps he should seek comfort from his younger and cuter exes, sparing me the burden of his presence. Despite this exchange, doubts lingered regarding whether my children were aware of his disrespectful behavior towards me during our marriage. While I understand the desire to shield them from parental discord, I cannot help but feel a sense of betrayal at their suggestion that I bear the responsibility of caring for a man who caused me so much anguish. Though they may have sensed the toll of my depression, anxiety, and diminished self-esteem following our separation, their understanding is limited by their youth and lack of first-hand knowledge of his hurtful actions. It's imperative that I elucidate the truth of his words and actions, allowing them to make informed decisions regarding their involvement in his care. Their adult status affords them the maturity to comprehend the gravity of the situation and contribute to their father's welfare without imposing undue burdens on me. Their reaction to my reluctance to accommodate him in our home is met with frustration, as they fail to recognize the audacity of their request in light of his past behavior. My home is not a sanctuary for his redemption, nor should I be compelled to sacrifice my well-being for his comfort. Their suggestion that I address his needs demonstrates a lack of empathy for my own emotional boundaries. As the situation unfolds, I am left to ponder the complexity of familial obligations and the delicate balance between compassion and self-preservation. Ultimately, I must prioritize my own mental health and assert my boundaries, even in the face of familial pressure. Accompanying him to urgent care and subsequently consulting an orthopedic specialist, it was unanimously advised to refrain from exerting pressure on the ankle for a minimum of 6 weeks. Despite Austin's compliance, his incessant complaints about the excruciating pain persisted until, seemingly miraculously, he found sudden relief upon the opportunity to perform at a school rally, a spirited inter-grade competition featuring the juniors presenting a Grease performance. Expressing my disbelief, I questioned my son's ability to dance with his injured ankle, to which he confidently claimed it felt fine, even showcasing his stretches. Following a conversation with his mother, who advocated a laissez-faire approach, I reluctantly agreed, stipulating that she assume responsibility for any ensuing medical bills, deductible notwithstanding. The event unfolded last Friday, and my attendants confirmed Austin's evident discomfort. Upon inquiry, he reassured me of his well-being, yet by day's end, he texted, unable to walk due to his ankle resembling a swollen loaf of bread. Seeking immediate medical attention, an orthopedic evaluation revealed not only a grade 3 sprain but also a previously undetected ligament tear, exacerbating the situation. The orthopedist outlined two options: rest and rehabilitation, with the caveat of potential chronic instability, or surgery. Opting for the latter, given its comparable recovery timeline, discussions ensued with his mother regarding insurance coverage. With both our sons benefiting from dual coverage, generously provided by our employers, utilizing both insurances seemed prudent. However, the extent of our financial obligation only became apparent post-surgery, with her insurance covering 65% and mine 35%, leaving a significant $3,000 copay. Firmly, I informed my ex that I wouldn't contribute to the copay. The onus was on her. Despite my refusal, she sanctioned Austin's participation in the dance, deeming it unfair for me to solely bear the financial burden. Resolute, I maintained that this situation was entirely avoidable, rejecting her assertion of shared responsibility and challenging her to pursue legal recourse. Warning of the financial repercussions, I hinted at a potential countersuit for expenses I had covered unilaterally, emphasizing the preventability of this entire ordeal. The reckless behavior exhibited by my son was truly alarming. Not only was he carrying a friend on his shoulders while another swung off his legs, but he was also lifting girls without any regard for his injured ankle, which he had neglected to wrap. Towards the end, he was literally dancing on one foot, defying all common sense. While I concur that his mother is primarily responsible for this decision and should bear the financial burden, we must consider the legal implications outlined in our custody papers. Failure to adhere to these directives could place us in a precarious legal position. However, I do agree with the sentiment that everyone involved shares some degree of culpability. Instead of prioritizing our son's health, we seem to be embroiled in a petty dispute over finances. It's clear that both his mother and I failed to assert authority and enforce the doctor's orders. Our son's actions were undoubtedly foolish, but we, as adults, should have intervened more decisively. Perhaps, in hindsight, I should have contacted the school to inform them of his injury and prohibit his participation in the dance. It's undeniable that both his mother and I share responsibility for this situation, and as such, we should split the financial burden evenly. On a separate note, I must emphasize my daughter's academic achievements. She has consistently excelled academically, maintaining a position on the honor roll throughout middle school. Currently in 8th grade, she is enrolled in the advanced track and also attends regular classes, including Spanish vocabulary. The absence of advanced tracks for certain subjects meant that all students in the class, approximately 50 of them, received the same homework assignments. Additionally, despite the lockers being located in the hallway, they were intentionally left without locks, as the school had adopted an honor system to prevent middle schoolers from accidentally locking themselves out by forgetting their combinations. Consequently, my daughter often found herself assisting classmates with their homework upon request, although she eventually grew weary of this practice and ceased doing so after Christmas break. Despite completing her assignments diligently, she consistently found herself missing homework when it came time to submit it. This puzzling trend persisted until 2 weeks ago when she was accused of cheating on an essay due to its striking resemblance to another student's work. It wasn't until we investigated further that we realized only her physical assignments from regular classes were going missing, whereas her digital work remained intact. Frustrated by this unjust accusation, she took matters into her own hands and discreetly recorded her locker, uncovering evidence that another student, whom we'll refer to as Beth, had been stealing her work. Armed with irrefutable proof, my daughter confronted both Beth and her teachers, exposing the theft to the entire grade. Subsequently, the school administration took action to rectify my daughter's grades, while Beth's mother attempted to deflect blame onto my daughter by accusing her of bullying. Refusing to entertain such baseless accusations, I stood firm in defending my daughter's innocence and refused to allow her to be unjustly punished. It's worth noting that according to the teachers, both girls had similarly messy handwriting, which may have initially obscured Beth's deceit. In light of these events, it's clear that Beth's behavior was not only tolerated but potentially encouraged by her parents. By standing up for my daughter, I not only defended her integrity but also ensured that Beth faced the consequences of her actions. Beth's mom should indeed feel ashamed for her daughter's behavior. On the contrary, you should take pride in your daughter's perseverance. She sensed that something was amiss, took decisive action to uncover the truth, and ultimately achieved justice. Turning to a personal anecdote, I have a son-in-law, let's refer to him as Jeff, with whom I have a strained relationship. Frankly, I find him lacking in competence, and I won't sugarcoat my feelings by dismissing his actions as mere pranks. While some may consider his antics harmless, I've noticed a pattern of behavior that, if not annoying, is certainly troubling. In the past, I used to prepare elaborate meals for gatherings, but as I've grown older, I've opted for potluck dinners instead. To streamline the process, I created a shared document where attendees can sign up to bring specific items, such as salads, chicken dishes, or desserts. However, complications arise when Jeff attends events alone. On multiple occasions, he has signed up to bring an item and then arrived with a joke version. For instance, when tasked with bringing a fish entree, he arrived with candy sushi, leaving us without a substantial dish to enjoy. On another occasion, he promised lasagna but presented a cake instead. Despite numerous conversations addressing his behavior, including discussions with my daughter, who assured me she would handle it, Jeff's antics persist. His deceit not only leaves us short on food but also frustrates other guests, who are left hungry. While his actions may have initially elicited a chuckle, they have now become a source of annoyance. Recently, I explicitly requested that he bring a salad to an event and even provided the option of purchasing a pre-made kit from Walmart. Instead, he arrived with a bowl of candy, dubbing it a candy salad. Faced with such blatant disregard, I made the decision to ask him to leave and took it upon myself to prepare a proper salad for dinner. Despite his protests and the subsequent backlash from my daughter, who labeled me an idiot for my actions, I stood firm in my decision. I find myself in a predicament where I feel compelled to invite him to family events despite my reservations. If I were to exclude him, I'd undoubtedly face criticism for my actions. Trust me, I'm inclined to not extend an invitation to him, but that decision would likely backfire on me. It's frustrating, to say the least. You're not the idiot, but the onus falls on you since it's your house. You need to assert yourself and stop extending invitations to him occasionally. Actions speak louder than words, and if verbal communication hasn't yielded results, perhaps this approach will. If other family members miss his presence, they're welcome to invite him themselves and deal with the consequences of his pranks. Alternatively, you could play a harmless prank on him by inviting him to an event on the wrong date or time and then revealing it as a joke. If you can make it seem like you're throwing him a surprise birthday party repeatedly, even better. Continuously calling him by the wrong name or serving him rubber food at family potlucks might drive the point home. Your son-in-law seems like a handful, unable to handle any semblance of responsibility. Next time, suggest he bring candy necklaces, with the twist being real necklaces. See how he reacts to that. It's clear that his penchant for pranks borders on idiocy, and it's time to put an end to the immaturity. Inform your daughter that you've reached your limit and that they're welcome back once Jeff learns to behave like an adult. None of his antics are funny or endearing, and it's about time he faced the consequences of his actions. Shifting gears, my mom passed away when I was 12, and my dad recently remarried. His new wife, Lorraine, is tolerable, albeit not someone I'm particularly fond of. I respect my dad's happiness, but Lorraine will never fill the maternal void in my life. Despite my reservations, she seems insistent on fostering a close relationship. She expressed a desire to be the woman I turned to for advice, but I politely declined. However, her persistence knows no bounds. On one occasion, she invited herself over to my maternal grandparents' house, insisting that she was now part of the family. Needless to say, My grandparents weren't pleased, and my dad had to intervene. While I understand her intentions, her actions are overbearing and misguided. She needs to respect boundaries and understand that familial bonds can't be forced. I've recently spent some time with a certain woman in my family who seems insistent on monopolizing my time. She doesn't have children of her own, which might explain her persistent behavior, but regardless, I find it somewhat intrusive. While it's not a major issue and I don't harbor any ill will towards her, I simply don't feel the need for us to develop a close relationship as she desires. Despite this, she has a passion for cooking, and my dad happens to adore her culinary creations. He frequently showers her with compliments, praising her cooking skills to no end. While I'm always appreciative of her efforts and express my gratitude, I refrain from lavishing the same level of praise as my dad. Last week, she went out of her way to prepare a lavish dinner for just the two of us, as my dad was working late. Following our household tradition of dining at the table, I thanked her for the meal and commented that it was nice. However, this seemingly innocuous remark failed to meet her expectations. She prodded me to provide more detailed feedback, even going as far as comparing her cooking to my late mother's. I politely reminded her that if she sought validation, she was looking in the wrong place, especially regarding my mother's culinary skills. In response, she erupted, accusing me of being rude and disrespectful. She claimed that my failure to acknowledge her culinary prowess was indicative of my mere tolerance for her presence. She argued that my acknowledgement of her culinary skills, even if they surpassed my mother's, should be seen as a positive step forward in our relationship. However, I refused to entertain her attempt to guilt-trip me into apologizing. Since then, there has been a palpable tension whenever we're in each other's presence, and it's clear that she expects an apology from me. Am I the idiot? You're definitely not in the wrong here. It's time to have a serious conversation with your father and urge him to address his wife's behavior. She's not your mother, nor does she serve as a mother figure in your life. Her attempts to fill that role and intrude into aspects of your life where she doesn't belong are damaging your relationship with your father. This is an issue that he needs to address, possibly with the help of therapy. You're absolutely right in asserting that she's overstepping boundaries. Despite being married for only 4 months, she's already attempting to overshadow the memory of your late mother, which is unacceptable. You should communicate to her that while you appreciate her efforts, attempting to force a maternal role onto herself won't expedite the development of your relationship. Building genuine connections takes time, built on a foundation of mutual respect and understanding.